So hello and welcome to Limitless You Talk with me, Katie. And today it's a little bit different. This is one that I've been really looking forward to. So I'm going to set the tone here. I reached out to Gary, who's with me today. Gary Rankin is a coach who helps people, helps businesses with growth in that context. And I reached out to Gary, having watched him on social media, the likes of Instagram, for quite a while, and learning and using little things to help my personal growth as well as who I want to become personally and professionally. And through Limitless You Talk, that's the type of things that we talk about. You know, we share conversations where it's just me and you as the listener, but also with others. And when me and Gary sat and did some planning for this, I reached out to Gary, was delighted that he even replied to me. But we put this together of how personal growth can help you to navigate through tougher times, bring a bit more balance to life, and excel professionally. So that's the idea in the context of what we are doing here today together. But before we do all that, I think it's only important that Gary, you tell us a little bit about who Gary is to set the tone of you.
Well, first of all, thank you ever so much for having me on and for such a gracious introduction. And it's a great pleasure that you've reached out to me, made my day. So
It made my day, so
it's,
yeah,
it's amazing to be here. And like you were saying earlier, if you don't ask, you don't get. So
absolutely.
always ask. The worst thing that can happen is someone says no or doesn't say anything at all. So anyway, my name's Gary Rankin. Above all else, I am a dad. My daughter takes up the majority of my time and energy very gladly. And as well as that, I'm a fitness enthusiast. Fitness was the beginning of me turning my life around and led me to personal growth. And now I'm a life and mindset coach, and I work with business owners and high achievers and help them to ditch the overwhelming insecurity, live true to their values so that they can be their best, thrive, and most importantly, be fulfilled in all areas of life.
Love that. That's just, see, to me, that gives me goosebumps, but like joy at the same time. I think coming from a place as well of, yeah, changing your life around is huge. And we want to start with talking about personal growth
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, power of developing growth, especially during times as society, as individuals, we do suffer the very roller coaster of the ups and downs of life. So, personal growth, why is it important?
To me personally, it's important because, and Q quote, we either grow or die. If you look at nature, plants grow until the day they die. Trees grow until the day they die. And I think as people progressing forward in life, temporarily through time, it gives purpose, it gives joy, it gives fulfillment, it gives enrichment to life to be able to progress through life in other ways as opposed to just temporarily, where you become stronger or better or improve the things you can create and achieve in your life, improve the impact you can have on others, be it just your loved ones or be it through your business or whatever you do in the world, can improve. And so personal growth helps you to become more of who and what you want to be in life. And I think that's an important thing because it gives each of us that sense of meaning and purpose in life because we have something to grow and progress towards.
I think I like that analogy of like, you know, a plant grows and lives until the day that it dies. And some plants, like if I have a bunch of flowers in the house, I've got to water those flowers to keep them going, to keep them kind of really colourful and not like droop over.
Yep.
So it ties into this personal responsibility that it's kind of like swearing at yourself a little bit. There's a lot of scarcity and a lot of fear. Like I loved how we when we spoke before, it was like handing yourself power. And I kind of sat up when you said that. So if we don't have that personal responsibility, it's going to make it a lot harder.
100%. Because life is all about cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
Every result in life, every effect in life is there because of a cause that created it. And so, if we don't take responsibility in our own lives for our own lives, we're then living at effect, whereby it's outside forces that determine our health, our happiness, our finances, our quality of life. And that's a very disempowering way to live life. That's where a lot of society is going these days with the politics that are going on. If you don't feel good, kick, shout, and scream and make society or someone else change how they behave or what they do so you can feel better about you. Which is basically saying, I have no control over my life. You must change for my life to improve. And you're living at a place of effect and disempowerment. And so, cue another quote for you. When you take responsibility, you give yourself the ability to respond. Which basically means if you're not happy with something in your life, or you're not happy with something about yourself, if you own up and take responsibility for your part in creating, attracting, or contributing to that happening, you now place yourself at cause and grant yourself the power to create a different effect.
I see when you said that, I was like, oh, that's really strong. And when we talk about society, certainly in my experience, is the external bubble is a great excuse, is a great tool to make it more difficult than personal growth needs to be. It's like me fighting myself, like me in a boxing ring in context of the person standing in front of me is me, but they're punching me and I'm probably going to get knocked out. So having this ability for me to throw the first punch is really empowering. But if we don't take on that personal responsibility, personal growth is just going to be, it's going to be this bang average standard that who wants that? Like, I always think to myself, who wants to be bang average? Wouldn't you want to be like, Gary, like, don't we want to be the best versions of ourselves?
100%. That's why my business was originally called The Drive to Thrive, because that's something that I feel strongly is the drive to thrive in life. Average does not sit well with me, for me personally, because I am of the mindset, which at times is a curse, that if there is something I could do that would make me, my life, my relationships, my impact better, and I'm aware of it and I don't do it, I'm now choosing to be a lesser version of myself, and that doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, I would agree with that for myself, especially what I've been through and probably what you've been through, and probably a lot of us listening to this would be through. And when we talk about drive to thrive, I had a little vision there. I love visualization, love it. And I've come to a crossroads and I've kind of, okay, I'm going to begin the personal responsibility and having the ability and, giving myself that power, my personal growth. But at this crossroads, there's also like a big sign that's professional. The professional Katie, the professional Sheila, the professional Jimmy. So, and it comes down to, I think there's a lot of things when it comes to professional growth. I think there's a lot of us that are very happy at the bang average because we've maybe worked so hard to get that. And that's not me being rude, but it's just being factual about it. But I suppose the connection between personal growth and professional growth, and it's something I actually learned recently, but me bringing my personal growth into my professional setting. So, like, how important is it equally, not only the journey personally, but as a professional in whatever career somebody's in?
I suppose that depends how far you want to go with your level of
I want to be the best. I want to have limitless you talk, be the best in the world, and you phone me up, Gary, and say, I'm standing at the top of Munro with my daughter, and we're talking about you, and like just the most ridiculous thing, right, to give in context. So I want to be the best of the best.
Well, then your personal growth is absolutely vital. And I know you'll get there. I look forward to phoning you from the top of Munro, and we'll make it a video call. And
Yeah.
it so
Yes.
social media and reference this day.
We've just put that out there.
That's how these things come about.
Yeah.
Speak it into existence. yeah, your personal growth is vital because if you think about it, you are a person, and when you are at work, you're still the same person, just in a professional context.
Hmm.
Therefore, anything that you can do to grow, improve, strengthen, better the person that you are, you're only going to better yourself in that professional context.
So, me as a funeral director, I have to wear a suit.
Mm-hmm.
I have to deal with a lot of sensitivity, a lot of bereaved families. Can I still be that same person that I am right now, sitting here with my hoodie on?
Absolutely. Now, you might be a version of yourself where maybe you tone down certain things. You're maybe not going to be so bubbly and full of laughter when sitting dealing with a bereaved family. But for example, there are universal things in personal growth that can help you in any situation. Like, for example, you're dealing with bereaved people. You want to be able to comfort them and guide them through the process of laying to rest a loved one. That is going to require you to keep your emotions in check whilst empathizing with them and not taking on all of their emotions at the same time so that you can still stay the professional holding a safe space to guide them through that process. And so, personally, let's just say that you went through a practice of increasing your ability to be mindful and present in the moment through practicing meditation of some form. Well, practicing meditation in your personal time is going to give you more presence of mind in your personal life, but also in that professional context.
Yeah, I think whatever industry someone might work in, could that then bring this sort of mentality of how can I leave work at that front door? How can I go in and take my uniform off, put the hoodie on, or put my pajamas on, or put my gym gear on, and really separate that to allow, I suppose, the energy in that moment of who I need to be. I just need to be the person having dinner with the kids around the table or getting in the zone because I've got a 10K run to go and do. And it's very hard to kind of leave emotions, leave stress, leave pressure, leave the project I've got to finish at that door.
Mm-hmm. It certainly can be, but it's also something that you can get better at because that is personal growth, improving your ability to be or do anything you want. And so, in that context, with regards to leaving professional life at the door, having more presence of mind is going to be a great thing because then, if thoughts and emotions related to work come up, you're better able to just let them pass on through or reframe them. But there are also certain things that you could do to help leave work at the door. Because what happens is we wake up in the morning and throughout the day we start opening tabs. So when I wake up in the morning, I open up the tab of being Gary if I get up before my daughter and I get to be me and have my morning routine. And then my daughter gets up and I open up the tab of being dad. And then Arabella goes to nursery and I open up the tab of being professional Gary, maybe the content creator. Then I open up the tab of being coach. Then I open up the tab of doing admin. And then it's time to open up the tab of being dad and fiance again. And so the more tabs that we leave open, similar to your phone and your computer, the less processing power that your phone or your computer has, therefore, the less processing power you have. So the more things that are in your head through the roles that you've played and the tasks that you've taken out, yes, the more difficult it's going to be to compartmentalize them and stop like a mental and emotional crossover. But for example, if at the end of your professional day, you sat down and did something that I like to call clearing the decks. You know, we've all probably heard a pirate movie or some form of movie where the guys, the people are at sea, and they say talk about clear the decks. And the purpose of clearing the decks is to make sure that there's nothing lying about on the deck that anyone can trip up on and hurt themselves, or that if they enter rocky seas is going to roll about and hurt anyone. And so this is your opportunity to clear the mental and emotional decks from yourself to go into that next part of your day. And so, for example, what you could do is before you just get up and walk out of being professional Katie and go into being working out Katie or whatever it is, you could do a brain dump where you grab a piece of paper and a pen, write at the top of the bit of paper, what's on my mind, read the question to yourself, and just write out everything that's on your mind. Everything. The ridiculous, the random, the completely relatable, and just get it all out. And basically what you're doing metaphorically is opening up a flap on the top of your head and pouring everything that's in there out. Now you've just cleared your mind. And you can have a look at that and go, well, is there anything here that I would like to address before I walk out the door? And that way you are now aware of everything that's of importance to you and your mind. You have addressed anything that's to be addressed, and anything else that's a priority, you've said to yourself, right, well, I'll deal with that first thing tomorrow morning or in 2 days' time or wherever it is. That way, because you've put pen to paper, got it out your head, and prioritized these things, your subconscious mind isn't every 10 minutes or every 30 minutes go, psst, Katie, remember you need to message that person tomorrow. Psst, Katie, remember you need to do this and that. Because your subconscious mind knows that you've now noted that down and prioritized it. Then you could take a nice few deep breaths. Brendan Bouchard talks about this in his book High Performance Habits, where you just take some nice deep breaths, and as you exhale, just say release tension in your mind, and just sigh the breath back out and just physically scan your body and release all the tension in your body. Then take some nice deep breaths in and set intention, the intention for who you want to be. So for example, I'll sit and I'll release the tension of my working day and all the thoughts related to work, and then set intention for who I want to be when I walk out the office. I want to be present, I want to be peaceful, and I want to be playful, because that's the dad that I want to be around my daughter. That way, this practice we've just done has closed down all the tabs that are no longer necessary that we've used throughout the day, and now we've got a clear mind for going about the rest of the day.
I'm just thinking about that question. For such a simple 4-worded question, what's on my mind? And I think it's a huge question to ask ourselves every day. Like, I journal, I brought it in this year. I journal at the end of the day. I set a timer at 9:15 at night. I can't do it always every day, not here or something else on, but I do it most days. And it's a great way for me to clear my mind. If I have a word that I want to write down, if I have a thought of an idea, it's just down because it allows me to settle.
Yep.
Like, relax a bit more, feel as if I've recovered, feel as if the flap that I've opened, I can just shut it nice and gently. And tomorrow's is a new one. But thinking about that question, what's on my mind is that personal growth and professional growth are like a couple that are in a relationship, and they have to walk hand in hand. They have to be loving. They're going to be tested. But more often than not, they're going to live a fulfilled life. I'm visualising this now as I'm saying it. They'll live in a fulfilled life, a nice warm country on a lovely beach. They'll have their moments, like all couples do, but they walk hand in hand throughout that. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what's on my mind right now, putting in the context of that question, is for me to grow where I want to be, so we can have that FaceTime at the top of that mountain, is I have to use that personal responsibility and that the ability that I have within myself to grow personally, then grab the hand of professional Katie and allow that to happen. It sounds so nice. It sounds so lovely. It sounds amazing. I've just set the tone for that now. Yep. But that's how it can be. That's you make vows if you marry someone. Mm-hmm. So that, again, in context, should be a vow that we make to ourselves. Each of us as an individual it should be it should be made law. It should be a law somewhere, so we make that happen for ourselves. But it's sad that we don't. But then, personal professional growth is like motivation. It's the foundation level. So it's like I heard this analogy and it was like it's putting the key in the ignition of the car or pressing the button of the car when don't always put the key in anymore. But do you think it comes from believing in myself or in an individual self?
Does what specifically come from believing in yourself?
Personal and professional growth. Do you have to have an element of belief?
No, because if you don't believe in yourself, maybe part of your journey of personal growth is to increase your belief in yourself.
Okay. Does that play a crucial role to be a better version or not necessarily?
Depends again what you mean by a better version, because for example, maybe someone doesn't believe in their ability to grow a successful business. They could still be a phenomenal parent.
Mm-hmm.
And they could still improve their parenting even without the belief in themselves and their ability to grow a business, if you get me.
Yeah.
What I would say is a foundational belief is the belief in your ability to grow and improve, because that's then the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset.
So I want to have a growth mindset.
Yeah, because a fixed mindset would be, I am the way I am, this is the way I was born, and this is the way I'll always be.
So is this so that would be the bang average self almost?
Potentially, there's potentially people who maybe they do have a growth mindset, but they've never explored personal growth or a growth mindset, and so they're just at the bang average level because that's what they're happy with, and they've never thought
Which
about
is
why
nothing
they
wrong
are
with that, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing wrong with that. So, and you said this to me before, and I wrote it down. It's about telling yourself a completely different story.
Mm-hmm.
How do I do that?
That's a great question. First things first, by becoming aware of the stories that you are currently telling yourself and the effect that they are having on you. Because we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we think it is. And so what is in our mindset, our beliefs about ourselves, the world, other people, our values, the language we use, how we process information, our past experiences, these all act like the lenses in your glasses. I nearly said my glasses, but I've not got them on. They act like the lenses on your glasses. That's what you see the world through. And so the stories that we tell ourselves about the world is the world that we experience. We project what's in our mind out onto the world. And when you become aware of the stories that you are telling yourself about yourself, your abilities, others, the world, etc., you can then begin to rewrite the story. Because that old cliche of your life is a blank storybook and you get to write the pages, well, it's true. Because all day, every day, we are telling ourselves stories about what we're experiencing. Like right now, there'll be a story going on in your head about the conversation that we're having, and there's a story going on in my head about the conversation that we're having. Whether it's loud enough for us to hear it or whether it's subconscious, there is one going on. It's how we understand the world and reality, because the world itself is chaotic and unknown. And the way that our brains work is they gather information through the experiences that we have and store them inside themselves so that we can try and make predictions about the world in the future to give us a sense of control and safety. So
Mm.
you see, hear, feel, touch, and taste the world through your five senses. So an experience happens. Let's say two boys in a park, young boys, 7 years old, playing toy swords with sticks. One boy doesn't notice there's an Alsatian 30 feet behind them, big dopey thing, sees the stick, runs at the boy from behind, snatches the stick out his hand playfully. The young boy, not seeing that coming, gets a fright. Seeing, hearing, feeling that experience comes into his mind, runs through his mental filters, and ultimately the question is asked, what does this mean? And he then attaches a meaning, a story to that experience. He could attach the meaning, oh my goodness, dogs are scary and dangerous. Now, he does that in a split second, consciously or subconsciously, and now that's added to his mental filing cabinet for how he views the world. So
Wow.
now, going forward, anytime he sees a dog or his mum talks about going to the park where dogs could be, his brain goes, park, dogs, we have a file for this. Dogs are scary and dangerous. Let's create panic and anxiety, and that will stop me from going to the park and it will keep me safe.
And is that the trigger? The
If that,
park, the
it,
dog, opening it up. Yeah.
yeah, anything that reminds him of dogs, his brain's then going to go, dogs, dangerous and scary, and
Wow.
that's the meaning he created from that
Such an easy example, but yeah, I would never realise that. And if I used to be scared of dogs, and I'm now sitting here thinking, what did that mean before we got the dog? Like, what did that? I mean, I would have walked across the road, so maybe there was something in my filing cabinet that I don't even know what it could be now. I was thinking of an example where a lot of us, and myself included, I'll be right up until the end of last year, used the expression, I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't think I was good enough for the coaching programme I was in with my coaches. I said it to them quite regular. Felt people were doing so much better than me. So again, this is bringing in, I suppose, perception of my negativity versus where I am now. It's more positive. So I was never good enough. Felt like I was a bit of a failure. I didn't look the way that they looked, or I wasn't really performing in the gym, or what I should have been in my first half marathon I was telling you about. So like, yeah, the perception of that, like I didn't believe. I wasn't telling the only story I was telling myself, and it was a very, very stubborn one, was, you're not good enough, Katie. I am not good enough, Katie. Even when I think about it, I think, oh, it's horrible to even think that I was capable of being so strong-headed about it. So my perception, I'm sure there's other people listening that probably feel that they're not good enough. Having that negativity, but changing it like positively, is about the perception. So I knew that coming into 2024 that I had to take the responsibility. Like I had to do that, and that's just because of 10 years of every other professional work and all the different varying things I've done. But for someone maybe feeling like that right now, that's maybe could relate to, they don't feel that they're good enough, and that's just their perception right now. How can we help them or give them something that can change that positively?
Great question. And thank you ever so much for sharing. And let me just tell you, I'm not good enough was part of my history. And I've been coaching for 8 years and coached hundreds and hundreds of people. And I'm not good enough is a very common thing, especially
Massively.
among some of the most successful people that I coach today. A lot of high achievers have achieved what they have achieved to run away from feelings of not being good enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's something you've got to address at its core. You know, for a lot of people who have achieved a lot of success but still feel like an imposter, still feel not good enough, in that case there's no amount of success is going to change that belief on the inside. That's something that you have to change by yourself or with a coach, because that is a limiting belief. That's something you have formed about yourself. That exact process we described where experience happens, what does this mean, attach a label, that label then becomes a belief, because a belief is just a strongly held opinion with evidence that we've gathered.
Yeah.
And so at some point in somebody's past, something has happened where they've had an experience that they have made mean they're not good enough, or someone else has said something and they've made that mean that they are not good enough. And so a good start is to just begin to challenge it. Like, how do I know I'm not good enough? And what actually is good enough? And start challenging the negative story. And then you can ask yourself, well, what evidence is there to prove the belief that I'm not good enough is total BS? And what evidence is there to prove that I am good enough? And then just start looking at the evidence to disprove the old belief and the evidence to prove the new belief. And just quickly to properly answer the previous question, when it comes to changing your perspective, or changing the story that you're telling yourself, same thing, is first recognizing again that you are responsible for the perspective you're taking, and you're responsible for the story that you are telling yourself, because we can't control what thoughts come up in our mind. You know, we think people estimate 50 to 80,000 thoughts a day, but nobody really knows. Up to 90% of which are negative, and up to 95% of which are repeated from the day before. So the chances that you've got some old unhelpful BS rattling around in your head is probably pretty good. And so we can't control what thoughts come up, but we can control what thoughts we choose to focus on and give our time and energy to. You know, you and I joked about this when we were talking about doing this episode of, you know, how many times have you had random thoughts come up in your head that you would never act on? Like somebody cuts you up in traffic and you're like, oh my God, I could kill them. Well,
Yep.
the vast majority of us are not going to get out our car and kill another human being, but we still thought about it. Or like when your child has a tantrum and you're like, I could just walk away and leave them in the supermarket and live a happy life. You're not going to do that to your child, but you still had the thought.
Top.
So, those thoughts that seem completely ridiculous, you would never act on, every other thought you think is no different. And so when you are in a negative frame of mind, or you're feeling negative emotions or unhelpful thoughts or unhelpful emotions, as soon as you have that moment of conscious awareness of, oh, I'm not feeling good, that's when you can ask yourself, about whatever situation, circumstance, event is going on, what am I making this mean? And then answer that in your head. Because when you ask yourself, what am I making this mean? You are eliciting that meaning, that story, that label that you are projecting onto that experience. And when you get the story, you can then decide, well, how helpful is that story? Well, I feel like crap, so it's not very helpful. But then you can ask yourself, well, what would be a more empowering way of looking at or thinking about this? And come up with a new story.
Yeah.
It's not about lying to yourself or deluding yourself. It's about choosing a perspective that puts you in a mental and emotional state that is resourceful, so that you can be who you want to be, take the action you want to take, and create the results that you want to get. And that way you can change the story in any moment. So,
you know, thinking about it and putting it back on what I shared, there was two moments. One was being surrounded by people that I just felt were doing so much better than me. Well, 3 moments actually. Thinking back, I think it goes back to all the previous versions of myself who have dealt with mental health, depression, anxiety. And I think at times being known or having this necklace round my neck that is who I am. So locally, for example, I am, funeral director's daughter. Oh, that's Paul Stevenson's daughter. Well, yeah, but Katie Stevenson does have her own identity, But the biggest point to that was my own coach, Christian, last November 2023, and I must have been talking and not making sense in my voice notes that I was sending to him. And he sent me a message back and he said, and this is that, to quote him, and people are going to think that he sounded harsh, but it wasn't. He was being true to my limiting beliefs at the time, but his belief that I'm capable. He'd persevered with me for 18 months at the time. So his words were, Katie, you need to get your head out of that tumble dryer that it's in. That was his expression. Now, very reactive in the moment. I was annoyed. Didn't respond straight away or anything. Took the moment to, and I was like, I don't want to have my head in a tumble dryer. I still felt like utter rubbish. It's horrible feeling that way at the thought of that person that I think highly of, that I had made the investment in to help me become better. And I had reached some goals, but they were bang average goals. But having that expression said to me and having about a month or so, and then like the new year, like still having it stuck in my subconscious mind, conscious mind, it was still there and relevant, allowed me to really take a look at myself. So just after New Year coming into 2024, I was then in a room with my coaches, with Christian and Ailey, who's another coach in the programme, another coach, Josh, who was in the programme at the time, and having people share their own stories, all connecting in the room, and people of all different backgrounds, and just it was a room of a huge amount of variety. And it was like, it wasn't that I wanted to be up there saying my story. I wanted to be the person up there that had earned the right to be up there. So I wanted to not feel like I wasn't enough. I wanted to be enough, just to be able to stand up, whether that be standing up with greasy hair because I haven't washed my hair in a week, standing up with my woolly hat on and my flat cap on, just being able to stand up. That's what I wanted. Mm-hmm. And because the want was so strong, taking on that responsibility personally, making different steps at the time, at the beginning of 2024, of doing some one-to-one face coaching, learning that it was holding me back, it wasn't where I wanted to focus, gaining some way in the funeral industry of trying to help well-being become something that we need to focus on, doing what I'm doing right now. So I had to have that right. I had to adapt. I had to really say, right, Katie, what does this mean to me? What's going on in my head right now? And do I want to continue feeling this way? Because the more I felt that way, the more of a lonely place it was. I know what it felt to be lonely when I thought I was the only person in the world at 16, 17 that thought they were the only person living with anxiety. But just because I didn't have an understanding, so it took 6 months to work that out. But now gaining the right mindset, having the ability to know that it's so hard, but growth is power. It's like they say, pressure is privilege, and it brings growth. Like, I suppose it's the importance of that right mindset for the perception, for learning how to take on that growth. Like, why is it that then I had to adapt, or someone has to adapt of that right mindset of obviously going through the process of, Gary, I'm not enough, don't feel like I'm enough, whatever's going on in my life, gaining some perception on that. And then it's now we're at the stage of, right, Gary, I'm wanting to adapt, help me adapt that right mindset to help me grow. Like craving, almost like a craving for something. Like, how does that be taught? How can that be taught to me or anyone to get through that?
Great question, and thank you so much for sharing your journey. And I just want to comment that it was powerful words that your coach said to you, and it's clear you two had a good relationship because he was able to say that to you. And although you didn't quite like it at first, it was a spark for
Massive.
you. And going back to what we said about responsibility, whether he meant it or not, he said you have to take your head out that tumble dryer. Not I'm going to drag your head out that tumble dryer.
Different story that would have been.
Yeah. So how does someone start? With that spark of inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
With first deciding, I want,
Yep.
I desire, whether that's I want to feel good enough, I want to be fitter, I want to be healthier, I want to be wealthier, I want to be more peaceful, whatever it is, it all starts with that initial desire to achieve something that you don't currently have, and that's the spark to get you into it. And you can, if you like, a great exercise where we're talking about visualization, and you mentioned a fork in the road earlier, you can close your eyes and in your own mind take yourself on a journey. If I don't change anything whatsoever, what will life be like a year from now? Then fast forward to 5 years from now, 15 years from now. If you don't change anything, what is life going to be like when you're on your deathbed looking back at it? And go on that journey. And it can be hurtful, it can be emotional, it can be tearful. And so once you've done that, come back to the present moment, open your eyes, give yourself a shake off, do some star jumps, get that energy out, sit back down, close your eyes. And now, if I make some positive changes, what will life be like a year from now? 2 years, 5 years, 15 years, the end of my life? And take yourself on a journey of what it's like to have made some positive changes, get to experience those results and emotions through visualizing it in your own mind, and then ask yourself, is it worth me going on the journey of achieving that?
So I do it. So like the 12-month thing is that I think of it, and kind of in this coaching space where it's future self.
Yep.
Think of the future version of yourself. But then we talk about the deathbed, and it's something that I actually heard on a podcast with two older people just talking. I don't know how they got a podcast, but the question they asked was, how would you like to be remembered? On your deathbed, we're having a conversation. It's the last conversation you get to have, and it's like, how do you want to be remembered? You get to tell that person. So it can be included in your funeral, and what's said at your funeral, how you'd like to be remembered. So it's putting visualization and context into the reality. As difficult as I thought to have about that is, that's the power of it. But as you said, like, you have to get your head out of the tumble dryer. Like I had to. And I loved how we chatted before. It was like, and you said, Katie, it's the I can rather than the I can't.
Mm-hmm.
I took away from that thinking, do you know, that is so simple, but yet so many of us as a society, I can't, Gary, because I'm not good enough. See how, like, putting that on it. So there's the limiting thought right enough. There's the power of the words and the language that I've just used. But yet you've just explained how thinking differently, using visualization of a year from now, 5 years from now, on your deathbed, it's a simple teaching, or even a self-teaching process to help change that narrative.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like we said earlier, first of all, it's simply about becoming aware that you are telling yourself a narrative, and that you are not the thoughts that you think, and that you have the power to change your thoughts. Like, for everyone listening just now, as I'm speaking, as long as you're not driving the car or crossing the road, like, close your eyes and do your best to picture the moon. Like, picture the moon, picture the moon, picture the moon, picture the moon, big, white, grey, round. Picture the moon, picture the moon, picture the moon. Right now, picture an apple. Picture an apple, picture an apple, picture an apple, picture an apple. Well, you just managed to switch from thinking about the moon to an apple. Both of those were just thoughts, and you managed to change them pretty quickly. And so any thought in your mind you can change just as quickly. First, by becoming aware that you experience thoughts. And this is a powerful one for people. I, I would say that meditation's a great start for people. When anyone who says, oh, I can't meditate, I'm sorry, it's that you won't meditate. It's not that you can't, it's that you won't. Stick with it. Because meditation isn't about trying to silence your mind. It's about being able to sit with your mind and witness whatever's going on in there. And so the reason that that's powerful is it helps people disassociate from their thoughts. You know, instead of thinking about, I need to make my mind go silent, we'll think about you're sitting on the pavement at rush hour watching all the cars go by, and all the cars are your thoughts. Now, the more you practice meditation, maybe you get to midday traffic and the road's much quieter. Maybe at some point you get to 3 a.m. traffic where there are no cars and one goes by every now and then. But the purpose of meditation is to show you that you are not your thoughts and be separate from them, so that when a thought comes up in your mind, you recognize, oh, that's just a thought. That one's not a very helpful one, so let me focus on something different. Like, for example, if I'm standing doing the dishes and it comes into my mind, oh, what happens if this next Facebook ads campaign doesn't work? Well, I could go, oh yeah, you're right. Oh, if it doesn't work, like, all that money's wasted and this and that, and before you know it, I'm now spiraling downwards while I'm doing the dishes. But if I'm aware that I'm not my thoughts, I can be standing doing the dishes and a thought comes up and goes, what happens if this next Facebook ads campaign doesn't work? Well, what happens if it's a massive success? And all of a sudden, I'm now painting a very different picture in my mind.
Because we always go to the negative first. And that comes back to the thoughts that we have in a day. How much of that is negative? But you can control how you think about that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like we said, you can't control what thoughts pop up, but you can control what thoughts you choose to focus on. And just because something seems true in your mind doesn't mean it's the truth. Here's an example. You walk through Glasgow with someone who supports a certain team that plays in Govan, and they see someone walk by in a green and white hooped jersey, they're going to be like, bad guy.
That's so politely put.
it's just a guy. Now, you walk down the street with someone who supports a team who plays in the East End of Glasgow, and they see someone in a red, white, and blue jersey, they're going to be like, bad guy. Now, that's two completely different versions of reality. So who's right? Neither of them. Because it's just stories they've made up in their head. And so becoming aware that you're writing stories in your head all day, every day, you can then begin to challenge those stories.
Yeah. And that's a very good one, because that example that you have said, how do I put it? It's like giving it away. It's blinded because of culture, because you have to adapt that mindset. You have to have the thoughts of the many fans of both teams. You know, you have to go with the crowd. You can't be your own. You can't have that personal responsibility to yourself, I suppose, in a way. And that sinks into your mind in some way. It can't help it. As I kind of think about it, it can't help it. Whereas, you know, the likes of the other ones, like me, who don't support those said teams, doesn't think that way. You know, wouldn't think that, doesn't want to think that, doesn't want to even get into the head of those certain individuals.
Yep.
But starting a journey for someone today, for any one of us, as I say, any one of us, the everyday individual, for overall growth. And this is your bit. This is all down to you. I'm here to listen. I'm not here to listen. What is, like, first steps, principles, tools, helpful tips, whatever you can, not just to everyone else listening, but I'm going to listen as well because I'm desperate to know. How can I be better? How can we all be better?
First of all, you sell yourself short a lot, and there's a lot you could offer on this as well.
Yeah.
To answer your question, there's a lot that anyone could do to be better. It's about you wanting to be better and deciding where and why and how you want to be better. So first of all, just starting off, if you've listened to this today or you're listening to this today and you decide, do you know what, I've really enjoyed this conversation, this personal growth stuff interests me, then great. I actually guarantee you've already grown. There's another quote for you. Man's mind stretched by a new idea can't return to its original dimensions. And so something
yeah, I like that.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
But that's it. Like when you find out a new piece of information about something, you can't unsee that from now on. And so you'll have heard something today that's already made you grow in some way, shape, or form because you're now thinking slightly differently about yourself, the world, your possibilities, whatever it is. And so I'd say a great first step is just to decide, I want to grow in some way, shape, or form, and acknowledge that you have the potential power and ability to grow. Because there's things you can do today that you couldn't do at an earlier stage in your life. And if you're like, oh, well, I don't know. Yeah, you didn't have a smartphone 20 years ago. Now you can operate one. You know, you didn't have Spotify X amount of years ago. You're working it fine to listen to this now. And so you definitely have the power and potential to grow. So first of all, acknowledge that, and then ask yourself, well, in what areas of life do I want to grow? And for what purpose? That way you're getting clear on what areas of life you want to make progress in and why that's important to you. That way you're making sure that it's for ecological reasons. And then let's start getting more specific and ask, well, what does better mean to me in that area? You know, because if I say, oh, I want better fitness next year, I technically only need to run. If let's say I do 200 runs a year, for example, just throwing a number out there. If I want better fitness next year, I can do 199 of my runs at the exact same times I did them before and do one of my runs 1 second faster, and technically I'm better. Not the improvement I wanted. So let's get specific about what better actually means to you, and then from there just start working out what can I do to improve in that area. So in order to be able to be or do that, what specific skills, behaviors, habits, frameworks, and resources are necessary? You know, so for example, if someone said, I want to become more confident in myself. Fantastic. Why do you want to become more confident in yourself? Because then I'll feel better. Why do you want to feel better? Well, if I feel better, then I will do more things that I really want to do. Why do you want to do more things that you really want to do? Because then I'll make progress. I'll feel accomplished. I'll feel empowered. Why do you want to do those three things? Because then I'm going to be the best version of me around my loved ones. Why do you want to be the best version of you around your loved ones? So I can have a positive impact on them. Boom. Now we've got your why several layers deep, and we're at that deep emotional reason at your core why you want to make an improvement. You know, it's like that thing of a weight loss journey is very rarely about losing weight. It's changing how you feel about yourself.
Yeah, as I say, that's if someone came to me as I have done it and it was, yeah, Katie, I want to lose weight. Okay. And using the power of the 5 whys, like you've just said, breaking it down to get to the deepest level. So I've like gone into your intestines, like right into the depth of the body. And as you said, being better, being positive and making a positive impact. As you said, there it is. That's the spark. That's the click. That's a light bulb moment. That is the deepest level possible of the actual reason why that person wants to lose weight.
Absolutely. So, yeah, first of all, decide you want to grow, acknowledge your potential to grow, and then decide where and why you want to grow, and then start getting more specific on, well, what does it actually mean to grow in that area? What specifically do I want to achieve, be, or be able to do? And then start asking yourself, well, what can I do to do that? Because when you ask yourself a question, your mind can't help but answer it.
Mm-hmm.
And I guarantee you, here's an example of how simple personal growth can be for everyone listening. If you're listening right now, ask yourself this question in your head. What are 3 to 5 things that I could do that would make me feel better about me?
Oh.
Now, the vast majority of you have got 3 to 5, if not 10. What is...
Could that be in a day, or could that be over a period of time?
Aha, you're taking my next question out of my mouth.
Oh, sorry.
No,
I was just thinking, I'm like,
I love your thinking.
oh, wait a minute here. There's
Yeah.
2 ways that I would look at that. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
So, of that list of things that you said you could do that would make you feel better about you,
Yep.
what's one of those that you could take action on in the next 5 hours?
Oh no, that's going deeper. So the things that I was thinking of was be kind to myself, de-stress, and reading. That was my 3 things. But I was thinking, does that have to happen right now? But then something in the next 5 hours, when I say it out loud, would be sitting having a cup of tea with my mum once I've finished all my work. So that's me getting ready to de-stress of the working week and sort of just having a switch off, and then starting to read the new book that I've got that's been sitting at the side of my bed for quite a number of weeks. I've been desperate to start, but just haven't started it. Haven't had the time. All of that sort of thing, you know, the normal everyday things.
Yep.
So that's, and now that I've said it out loud, I'm thinking bigger. Like, what are the 5 things that I could do to make the rest of 2024?
Yep.
You know, I've set this tone for myself. So my current goal was to finish the year the strongest and fittest that I've ever been. And that's just because my head's been on a tumble dryer for 18 months of that journey. You know, it's speaking at truth and reality. So that's mine. So the 5 things to do to help that happen, again, just putting in the question you asked, is work on my speed work. So I'm going to be undertaking where the goal is to run as fast, well, it's actually called the Fast as Fuck 5K, which is written on my notes here. It's written on the top of my notes.
Covered in water there. I've been trying so hard not to swear today, and then you dropped an F-bomb on me.
I should have said bad language is allowed in this podcast. My dad will probably give me a row for that. But and the reason why it was that is because I've never been able to do a sub 25 5K. I've ran 5K at 27:15 is my best, but I was undernourished, very, very low in weight. Bones were like, you know, bruised like a peach, that expression. So it's been, you know, as consistent as I've been in the year, it's bringing some speed and power and challenge and some pressure with the goal of doing it on Christmas Day. Like, that is that, you know, whatever weather there is, I am running on Christmas Day. It's not I can't run on Christmas Day, it is I am running on Christmas Day. I might have to run in snow boots, but I will be running on Christmas Day. So it's like, so it's making sure that I put myself in the right environments between now and then. I listen to the right conversations that help grow me. It's stalking you on Instagram and Facebook. It's, you know, it's doing all of that enable my journey to continue, that then will ready me for 2025, if that makes sense. So that's us just playing out the scenario for someone, like whoever you are listening to us. that's what you should be doing. Like, that actually excites me sitting here. Like, we finish this conversation, and maybe this afternoon before I read, I'm maybe going to sit there and I'm going to repeat the questions that we've talked about on this podcast so far in this conversation is, what's on my mind? What does this mean to me? How do I want to be better? What are the 3 things that I could do today to help be better? What are the 5 things over the rest of 2024 could help me? What's the 10 things for 2020? Do you know, it's grown and grown and grown.
Yep.
And that's the power of growth. Well, in my opinion, that's the power of growth.
Yeah. And that really is. And again, thank you so much for sharing that and playing it all out, because that's...
It was the pressure. It was the pressure.
But you've just perfectly exemplified how just asking a few questions has blown open your mind with technicolor visions of possibility. And so for anyone listening, yeah, what's one of those things you could do within the next 5 hours? And now go and do it. You've already grown because you've taken responsibility for how you feel about you and come up with 5 ways that you could feel better. You've now decided what one of those is, and you're now committed to action. So go and take action and you'll grow even further. Just the same as you could say to everyone listening, if you really want to grow, go and grab a pen and paper, not your notes on your phone, go and grab a pen and paper and ask yourself, what does the best version of me look like? How do they act? What do they do? What do they believe? What kind of behaviors and things do they do? What are they like? And if the best version of you intimidates you, just ask yourself, what does the next best version of me look like? Write it all out. And then ask yourself, what's one small thing I could do to step towards being that person in the next 24 hours? Go and do it. And you've grown.
You've taken that first step.
Exactly.
Like you spoke about. And you know what I was thinking there? Before we started recording this, we were talking about longevity.
Yep.
And do you know, someone just clicked there, was like, if you start that 5 hours and you know the best version, what does it look like? Like creating this avatar, you're actually creating a longevity version of yourself. I don't know why I found that there was a connection there. Maybe that doesn't make sense, maybe it does. But I just felt there was a connection there to the power of growth, and the power of growing has a better longevity. Do you know, I'm just like, I'm thinking out loud now. Yeah, it all fits in this growth, and whatever type of growth it is, whether it's personal or professional, but it's so powerful, and we should all be doing, I think, is the message in amongst all what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I would agree. Like, I think health and well-being, self-care, fitness goes hand in hand with your personal growth, and is actually a cheat code for personal growth, because all self-care, regardless of whether it's a bubble bath, getting your nails done, going to the gym, journaling, meditating, breath work, whatever it is, all self-care in its most basic form is self-respect.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you do something for your well-being and betterment, that is you subconsciously saying, I am worth doing this for, and I give enough of a fuck about myself to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So even someone who doesn't have that confidence or doesn't feel good enough, you can start to improve that by doing things that show yourself self-respect and self-care.
Yeah, it's looking at yourself, looking at myself, looking at yourself, looking at us as all as individuals. And in all of that, there's always a question I like to finish with. And I've teased you about this question.
I'm ready for it. I didn't listen to any other episodes purposefully so you could surprise me with it. So
And I'm actually, now that we've got getting to know you and things, I'm really intrigued about it. So the question is, Gary, what are your superpowers?
Great question. One of my superpowers is helping others to really expand, evolve, and get excited about their own potential.
Oh, that's a good one. What else?
I am very good at listening to people because that is my job. As a coach, my job is not to tell people what to do, it's to listen to what they say and recognize through what they're saying, what they're also not saying,
Hmm.
the patterns in their thinkings and behaviors, and help reflect that back to people. So I'm very good at recognizing patterns as well, taking a lot of complex information and ideas and distilling it down into more simple, palatable, actionable things. What else would I say is a superpower? It's a great question. I love that.
I love asking it because it just puts a silence in the room. I didn't hear that very question for context like that, but I adapted it to how I use my mantra of using my everyday powers and being super. So that's where it comes. So we're all capable of having superpowers. What about a sort of, to kind of finish off, a sort of more personal one? I feel like we've done the personal growth ones and how, but what about a sort of personal one or a generic personal one for you or superpower?
Oh, personal superpower.
Yeah.
Um, my personal superpower is probably to throw myself further out of my comfort zone than I would have liked to and be
Yeah.
able to handle it.
Yeah.
Um, I would say that's a personal one because a lot of the most rewarding and fulfilling and growth filled experiences of my life have started with me going, Gary, what the fuck have you got yourself into now?
I do
And
that a lot. Yes.
and being filled with genuine despair,
Yeah.
um, and overcoming that. And so I would say that one of my superpowers personally is my ability to continue to push myself to grow, and then the other one is helping others
Yeah.
to grow. Because yeah, growth is such an important part of my life, especially since becoming a parent. Like, parenthood is one of the most intense personal growth experiences you will go through because everyone in the world is just a mirror for yourself. When you see someone and you like something about them, what you're seeing is a part of yourself in them that you like or that you would like to develop.
Hmm.
If you see someone that irritates you and you don't like, all you're seeing is part of yourself in that other person. And so your children are the ultimate mirror for you. And so for me, the journey of parenthood is continuing to let go and sacrifice the things in me which aren't going to be good for my daughter. Continuing to let go of my own selfishness and my own traits and things that are undesirable so I can be the best parent I can be. So I'd say my superpower is also that ability to push myself to continue to keep growing.
I think that's a great way to finish. A great way to sum it all up of the reasons why not only we're having this conversation, but why we like self development and growth, why we do it every day. So, to anyone listening to our conversation, just take something from it. Write down a takeaway, as we say, the pen and the paper that you're going to get out. Just a takeaway or a word or anything that relates to you and your journey, or how you can use today as a step to better that journey. Now, for anyone that wants to follow you, like me, where would they find you? Where could they follow you, Gary?
I will be most active on Instagram. You will get me on Facebook too, but come get me on Instagram at Gary Rankin _. And as I say at the end of all interviews, please if there's anything at all today that you have questions about, you would like me to expand upon, there's anything else you would like to know about me, if you're scared and you don't know where to start, anything, please reach out to me. I am an open book and I'm always more than happy to help, and it'll be a pleasure to hear from you. You know, you and I were talking before this podcast began, how you just reached out to someone who you thought
Yeah.
was much further ahead than you, and they were like, yeah, I'm happy to help. So please do the same. And if I may say a few last words just to help people.
Absolutely.
Your journey of personal growth is deeply personal to you. That's why it's called personal growth. And although it's thrown around not to compare ourselves to others, you're going to at some point. And when you do, remember, you get to choose what you focus on. And so shift your focus back to comparing yourself against yourself, because this journey is about progress, not perfection. I hate to break it to you, you'll never be perfect. None of us ever will. All you can do is be better than you used to be. And better doesn't mean that you are more worthy, because you're already worthy and lovable as you are. You wouldn't have been put on this earth if you weren't worthy of life and love. And so by better, I just mean improved at certain skills, habits, behaviors, and things that are important to you. And just go and get started. You know, you don't need to remember everything that you learn. All you need to go do is go and take some form of action that exemplifies changed behavior based off of what you've learned. And, you know, if the idea of writing out who your best self is and going and taking action on that just now seems a bit scary, fine. Here's something you can do to grow. Go and choose another 3 podcast episodes, put them in a playlist and listen to them over the next few days, because one of the best ways to change what's in your mind, apart from you consciously directing it, is to start feeding it different things. Because your diet and nutrition isn't just what you eat and drink, it's what you watch, listen to, read, who you spend your time with, and the situations you regularly expose yourself to. And so if you want to grow in certain areas of your life, listen to content related to that type of growth. Because if something today has sparked a curiosity, an inspiration, a drive, a desire in you, go and listen to more personal growth material, because there is a plethora of it out there. And through nourishing your mind with more and more of these ideas and concepts and principles, your mind is going to grow.
Love that. I think that's such a nice way to round it off, Gary. Thank you.
You are more than welcome, and thank you ever so much for such a fun and inspiring conversation.